Speaking of keeping memories alive, our next honoree this evening is Norman H. Shapiro. And to present Norman is Weigel Broadcasting Executive and 2008 Silver Circle inductee, and in my view, one of the reigning geniuses of television programming in America, Neil Saban.
I don't know, Bruce, so thank you very much. But tonight, I want to talk about what an honor it is to be here to introduce Norman Shapiro. For many of you, it's more than an introduction to Norman's Silver Circle Award, it's an introduction to Norman himself. You see, that's the way Norm kind of likes it. He likes being below the radar. Norm, you're still going to do this, right? Are you there? He's there. Okay, you never know. Okay, we're going to do it. Trust me. You don't read about Norm in the paper. You don't see him on our television station. But Norm stands, along with his father, Howard, as one of this community's, and I really believe this industry's, most distinguished broadcasters. Now, maybe that sounds a little too rubber chicken dinner, and I wrote that line before I knew what dinner was. Distinguished broadcaster. It doesn't really convey what Norm really represents. Norm is a broadcaster, an individual who loves free over-the-air television and takes seriously the responsibility of service embedded within the business of broadcasting. Norm is not a hedge fund, a spectrum speculator, or a giant group owner that makes all his decisions based on the stock price or the bottom line. Don't get me wrong, Norm runs a profitable business. But I assure you, we do things at Weigel that other companies would put a big red line through because they don't generate enough money. Norm thinks they're the right things for broadcasters to do. Norm is the kind of businessman, not just a broadcaster, that this country just doesn't have enough of. At a business dinner recently, Norm was asked what keeps him up at night. Without pause, Norm said, "I have 350 employees and their families on my shoulders that rely on me." Norm, I hope you at least are getting a nap once in a while these days. During the recession, he made it the company's goal not to lay anyone off, and we didn't. We actually hired people. When the company's deal to sell our South Bend stations didn't happen, Norm said, "Let's make the market sorry it didn't happen." Now, it wasn't exactly those words, but it was close to that. Norm bought a building and put into motion the hiring of about 40 people to produce local news in a state-of-the-art manner at our stations in South Bend. This itself was big news in a town with tremendous economic challenges far beyond just the recession. Norm invests and innovates, and our news in South Bend in its first year was nominated and won awards, the only station in the market that won awards for its news coverage after just its first year of being on the air. I believe that if Norm's kind of thinking and action was the norm in our business today, or in business in general, our economy would be in much better shape. He's compassionate, thinks beyond his own pocketbook, and wants to make a positive difference as a businessman and broadcaster. I've often said that the real patriots are not those waving flags and wearing lapel pins, but the Norms, who hire, not fire, who invest, not speculate or eliminate. That's our Norm. Now, I have to add a personal note. Norm, you're my boss, you're my go-to guy, you're my in case of emergency call. You probably don't even know that, but that's the number I put down when I go hiking. You're my mentor and my friend. The opportunity you and your father have afforded me has been extraordinary, and I say this with more conviction now than I did 4 years ago when our roles were reversed on this stage. I'd lay down on the tracks for you, and I know I would not be alone in doing that in your Weigel family, as you are about to see.
The norm for Norm is?
Nothing's ever black and white. It's always in the middle, and you can always argue it different ways. That's a norm.
The time he stops thinking is when his BlackBerry blows up.
He is always online.
It's the sort of the Columbo-esque, where he puts his glasses up and says, I just have one more question.
He is always watching.
The guy's built on trust. He's built on ethics.
He always has this sense of
calmness.
Tenacity and credibility.
He's so honorable.
I get emails at midnight and the phone rings at 7:30 my time the next morning, which of course means it's 6:30 in Chicago.
So the norm for Norm is, I'm not sure he sleeps.
The day we met, I was sold.
Norm is the kind of guy that will just roll up his sleeves. He'll do whatever it takes.
A Washington lawyer. What did he know about TV? But he was a quick learner. He is possibly the most knowledgeable person in the United States on both technical, FCC, and the use of frequency spectrum. He combines all that knowledge into pushing us into a new century.
I think Norm would be the first to say, we're a little guy. And yet those little guys have really big ideas.
Norm likes proving people wrong.
We are both, in our each separate worlds, the David fighting the Goliath.
Norm was kind of like the Wizard of Oz. He was the guy behind the screen, the curtain who was pulling all the levers, but we had never seen him.
Being entrepreneurial and looking at anything from upside down, sideways, and just being able to look at a puzzle and put that puzzle together and just say, yeah, we can do that.
You can really see Norm's commitment to the company, to the market.
We were both in Las Vegas to the convention when we had the big flood at the Board of Trade. We caught a flight back, got on the phones, talking to people, getting things lined out. We got back here sometime in the evening, and by morning we were back on the air from the Board of Trade with generators carried up to the 43rd floor.
There have been a number of threats and scares, including the anthrax scare. So we get a significant amount of mail within the building. One day I get a call from Norm. He said, be ready in 10 minutes. We're going down to the post office to pick up the mail. We put on our rubber gloves. We opened up that mail in his car every single day and went through each piece of mail before it ever went to the station.
Our business is special. We treat, I think, our employees respectfully, and the industry that we are in with awe and reverence.
I remember sitting in a meeting in a conference room. He had this look on his face that he rarely has, but when he has it, I know he means business, and said, I will not lay off anybody.
It just shows his loyalty to the people that work for him.
It was a big family. I always felt pretty much like, well, we're part of the Shapiro family.
I had cancer 8 years ago. I sat down, told him my situation, and he goes, stop. Worry only about getting well. I don't want to hear about anything else but getting well. Your job will be here.
Norm has always drilled into us. We're a family-owned operation. No matter how big we get, how are we going to give back to the community in a positive way?
There are things that are important in service to the community, things like Green Screen Adventures, our Chicago Public School and the high school sports.
When I was asked to serve as the school board president in Chicago, I went over and talked with Norm and Howard, and they were both very accommodating to try to use their resources at the television station to bring the medium of TV in to help us. And that's not something you can sell to anybody.
5 years ago, Norm asked me to create a show that would make a difference, one child at a time. He said, teach the 4 C's: compassion, consideration, confidence, citizenship. 5 years later, Green Screen Adventures is still going strong.
I think a lot of people don't realize the good things he does behind the scenes.
He's broken all the boundaries. I mean, he really has.
The unassuming guy next door with a heart of gold that's actually smarter than everybody else in the room but won't let you know that.
Never in my wildest dreams. That's all due to Norman.
You stayed in the room.
I guess I stayed. On behalf of myself, my family, and Weigel Broadcasting, I first want to thank the Academy for this honor. I also want to thank Jim Marchetti and my daughter Alyssa for producing the video. They created something out of nothing, and quietly. Until last week, I had no idea that Alyssa was even involved, and until yesterday, I had not seen the video. Thanks for making me look good. You certainly know enough to have had other options. And thank you, Neil, for your kind words. As I think about the past, the primary thought I have is how fortunate I've been. I was born into a warm and loving family. I have my own wonderful family, a great wife, good kids, great kids. And I had the opportunity for an education which, together with the values my parents taught, provided me with a broader perspective than I might otherwise have had. I was also fortunate to have a father who was both a brilliant businessman and a compassionate person, who recognized an opportunity with respect to a fledgling UHF station over 45 years ago, and had the guts to literally bet the ranch on it. As he told me then, quote, "Sometimes in life you have the chance for the brass ring, once," close quote. The bet paid off, and we didn't lose the house. And 28 years ago, I joined him to see what I could do to help. It's been an extraordinary 28 years, both for our small, independent, entrepreneurial company and the industry in general. We've seen many opportunities and challenges come our way. Opportunities we like, challenges not so much. But they come with the territory, and when they do, we recall that the Chinese essentially have the same word for opportunities and challenges. And we have, by and large, been fortunate in our opportunities, though they often required pushing the envelope and doing things that might have seemed foolhardy and or virtually impossible at the time. Things like deciding to compete in Chicago in the general market against 5 network-owned and operated stations after we lost our Spanish network affiliation. Like becoming the CBS network affiliate in Milwaukee and having to build a news and a broadcast tower and acquire competitive syndicated programming, all from scratch. And like building a local news, also from scratch, for our ABC affiliate in South Bend, and like recognizing the opportunity that multicasting represents, both locally and nationally. And it was pushing the envelope that led to what I believe was the first viable national diginet in the This Movie Network. And our local multicast of MeTV led to the national launch of the MeTV network slightly over a year ago, which now has over 120 affiliates throughout the country. And then there is, oops, not supposed to talk about that one yet, right, Neil? Our pushing the envelope, though perhaps in a different way, led to the development of our children's show, Green Screen Adventures, and our work with the Chicago Public Schools. We are proud of those efforts which are now not only local but national in scope. And we've been very fortunate with respect to our competitors. You are very good, very big, and very scary. You, to say the least, keep us on our toes. Thanks. And beyond that, you get no thanks at all. And almost finally, I've been fortunate in the people with whom I've had the privilege of working in my almost 3 decades at Weigel. There have been hundreds. My goodness, and sorry, Dad, today Weigel has over 350 employees in 3 states and advertising for more. So in almost 30 years, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And but for these people, there would be no Weigel, no envelope to push, no opportunities to meet or challenges to overcome. This Silver Circle honor belongs as much and perhaps more to them as to me. And I want to thank them all for their passion, loyalty, incredible hard work, creativity, and never say die attitude. I'm now going to do something a little dangerous. I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you by name to but too few of the people here tonight. To Joe, who has worked for Weigel for over 40 years and has seen it all. The good, the bad, the ugly, the stupid, the what are these guys up to now perspective that comes with a lifetime of service. Thank you. To Bernie and Rosie, who, in addition to all you did, which was essentially everything, you brought your character and basic humanity, the very best in this land of Lincoln, which you shared with all of us. Thank you. To Jim, who built our Milwaukee operation from nothing to today with its state-of-the-art facility, broadcasting 6 streams, with a competitive and award-winning news, and many years ago, built an incredible bridge to somewhere over a broad and mighty river so we could build our 1,200-foot broadcast tower. Thank you. To Gail, the heart and soul of Green Screen, you are a perfectionist, and perfection in pursuit of education is a virtue. Thank you. To Kyle, whose love of technical challenges is only exceeded by his ability, passion, and creativity to meet them. Thank you. To Fred, whose quiet counsel, wisdom, responsibility, and unshakable integrity and commitment to Weigel has been a cornerstone of our success for years. Thank you. To Neil, for your loyalty, endless passion, nimbleness, knowledge, ability to see virtually invisible opportunities and turn them into reality, for being a mensch, and for your friendship. Thank you. And to my wife, Lily, my rock, who has worked with me, and some would say for whom I have worked for nearly 20 years. Thank you for never leaving any doubt as to what your opinion on any subject may be. Thank you for always telling me the truth. And thank you, and I don't really believe I'm saying this, for telling me things I don't want to hear, repeatedly if necessary. And indeed, thank you for everything. And to my father, wise in years, young in mind, the creator of everything, and by definition, and in fact, without whom and all that he has done and sacrificed, I certainly would not be here today. You have made everything possible and provided me with ongoing lessons in the fundamental nature of loyalty and love. I know it has not always been easy. I know you have not infrequently wondered, what has Norman done now? And as most of you know, that while the name may be Weigel, its real name is Howard Shapiro Broadcasting. Thank you for teaching me what I know, the values, the means, the ends, and that there are many ways to solve a puzzle. And as you said in your own Silver Circle acceptance speech many years ago, for saying that we should always be of service. Lastly, when Neil and I first met almost 20 years ago, we talked about many things. But essentially whether WCIU could ever emerge as a successful, independent, general market station. At the end of the conversation, I told Neil my personal business goal, that we do something together that would make my kids proud. And you know, just to say, that after these almost 20 years, that's still a pretty good goal. Thank you.
Wow. One of the great things about the Silver Circle is that it brings into that circle, and it brings a spotlight to many people in the room who may not know who the inductees are. And it isn't just the people, everyone who knows, who's in the business knows, it's not just the people who are on camera that make television work. And I think the ability to recognize the leadership that you have shown, and certainly the pioneer spirit of your father, is an integral and probably, I think, the most important aspect of the Silver Circle. It educates. I think there was a huge education that went on here tonight. And again, I congratulate you and the family, the first family of Chicago television. Our next Silver Circle honor goes to Jim Dish, who, along with fellow Silver Circle inductee Paul Davis, built the WGN news team, the news division, the news department. And again, if you've been in this town for a long time, it took a long time for the newspaper-owned television station to understand they had a great potential on television. And with the leadership of Jim Dish, who we'll soon hear about, and Paul Davis, they brought it from the dark ages to where it is now regarded as one of the top independent news operations, not only in the city, but in the country. To present the induction this evening to Jim is a longtime friend and colleague, an Emmy Award winner, a 2006 Silver Circle inductee, who also was part of that team. Please welcome from WGN, Gloria Brown.
Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Gloria Brown, and I'm here to present this prestigious award to my good and dear friend and former colleague, Jim Dish. What an honor, and congratulations to you. Jim, when I sat down and thought about the things that we did together, thought about the things that we meant to each other, there were a lot of memories. I do believe, in looking around this room, that you work with most of the people here, and some of them who are not here. Most of the people who are not here in television you work with over the 40-plus years. I started to jot down memories of my 40-plus year friendship with Jim as I prepared this presentation, and there were several things that came to mind, like how he has helped shape the careers of hundreds of students and colleagues of more than 4 decades. I know this to be true because I'm one of those that he helped. He always told me to trust my instincts when I was afraid to do something. Just trust your instincts, Gloria. What if you don't have any? And he'd always say, oh, you do. The other thing that I think of is what an amazing manager you are, and an advocate for diversity. This is something that Jim has always done way back when, and I was the one supposedly in charge of that area, and he's telling me that's not diverse enough, you know? He was doing it long before it was politically correct. Also, when I think of Jim, I think of a generous teacher, as well as a brilliant writer and producer. When I think of Jim Dish, there are many, many things that come to mind. Another is that he's a great people person, and that he has an incredible sense of humor. He wrote the funniest going away videos for staffers' departure parties ever. Plus, I think way back to when Jim was a union man. No one could touch him at the company negotiation table. I could go on and on with all of my high praises for Jim, but Thea has a hook over there. And I want to tell you about the humorous side of Jim Dish. I think this story is one of my favorites. When I think of Jim Dish, the funny side of Jim Dish. I'm going to tell you about how he described how he and Pat handled the surprise of having triplets. They're sitting right over there, at least 2 of them are. From the time that Jim and Pat knew they were going to be parents, they were ecstatic. They were overjoyed. They learned early on in the pregnancy that they would be expecting twins. But it wasn't until they were in the delivery room, after they had delivered 2 babies, that one doctor discovered a 3rd baby. Of course, you know, Jim's not, he's paying attention, but he's busy making a documentary, the Dish Baby documentary. So when the doctors announced his discovery, Jim chimes in with this incredible sense of humor, saying to the team of doctors in the delivery room, "I think I'm going to faint." You know, when you have multiple births in the hospital, you know, there are a lot of doctors. So a couple of the doctors in the room rushed toward him to help him out of the room so that he wouldn't hit the floor. But of course, Jim was just being funny. It was just a joke. It was his warped sense of humor working. That had the doctors puzzled. So Jim had to talk his way back into the delivery room. So the doctors finally realized that he was fine, just weird. So Jim just continued to shoot his documentary. So now the triplets are fine. Pat and Jim have figured out a feeding and changing pattern. They were really into this parenting role, and they were really good at it. Pat tells me because they had plenty of wine. I don't know. But now it's time to get them blessed in the church, to introduce them to the Catholic Church. It's time for them to be baptized. The invites are out and everybody's at the church. Family and friends of the Dishes are gathered at the church for the baptism of these 3 beautiful babies, Kevin, Kim, and Sean. Jim and Pat, I had this big group of godparents, and they were standing holding the babies. The ceremony has begun. The priest started asking questions of Jim. Questions were something like this. Well, I'm not Catholic, so don't hang me if I get it all wrong, but it goes something like this. You know, Baptists just pray over you and you take you out, you know. But I'll try. What name do you give this child? The priest says. Jim answers. And then the priest says, do you renounce Satan and all of his works and all of his empty promises? Jim answers once again. The next question was, what do you ask that God's church do for your child? There was no answer. Just complete and utter silence. Everyone in the church is waiting for Jim to answer, but he was stumped. So finally, Jim speaks. He looks up with a cartoon character-like grin and twinkle in his eye, and he asks the priest, please, can you give me a clue? It was hilarious. Everyone in the church started laughing out loud, including the priest. It all makes sense now. Every moment is a teaching moment for Jim. He's now working for the church. And by the way, there's a 4th Dish child. It's Stephen. Poor Stephen had to come into this world alone, but we love you, Stephen. The stud muffin sitting at the table right there. Then you know that one period in Jim's life, he thought he was a master sailor. Both he and Steve Sanders. 20-some years ago, Jim Dish and Steve took the afternoon off to work to sail down Lake Michigan from Waukegan, or was it Winnetka? Anything past Addison Street is too far for me to know. I don't know. but somewhere like that. According to Steve Sanders, that phrase, "hey sailor," always seemed embarrassingly inappropriate to them after he and Jim capsized the Hobie Cat. Not once, but twice in the same day. I don't know anything about sailing, but I guess riding an overturned Hobie isn't easy on the best of days. And with 4-foot seas, I guess it's one rough day on the lake. I understand that what Jim and Steve had to do required agility and the weight of 2 grown men with their feet firmly planted on one pontoon, leaning backwards while pulling on a line tied to the opposite pontoon. And oh yeah, and those 2 men are, how do I say it? One is on top of the other one, because there was only one line to pull on. I knew that Jim Dish and Steve Sanders had fast become close friends, but I never knew how close. But what did they learn from that day? Well, again, Jim Dish is the ultimate teacher. He said that they learned about teamwork and pulling together to make the boat point up instead of down. Now, I was already working at WGN when Jim Dish was hired in the summer of 1968 as a news writer. My first impression of Jim was that he reminded me of Archie in the famous comic book strip. Not only did he resemble him in a cartoon sort of way, you know, he was sort of cute and always smiling. But the real truth is, neither one ever aged in 30 years. I know, I was watching them. And finally, as I said earlier, Jim made the best